everyone, and welcome to a new episode of Set Listing Bruce, your podcast all about Bruce Springsteen, his music, and mostly his fans. I am your host, Jesse Jackson, and joining me is a frequent guest. Coming up in March, I'm doing Friendship Month. I am doing episodes where people that have bonded over Bruce Springsteen's music are joining me, and Ian Braisby and I could qualify for those episodes. Ian, welcome to the show.
Hi, Jesse. Great to be back and great to see you again. And great to be on the podcast again, of course.
Yes, every once in a while. I'm suggesting. I think that Terry and Steven and you and I and a couple other people could all do a round table. That because of this podcast, we've kind of gotten this network of people through Terry Smith's music talks, and we kind of developed this band of brothers. Not that we don't want any female siblings, but it just worked out to all us guys, and I think that's one of the sweet things about this podcast.
Oh, I totally agree, and I think you've got this band of brothers and this group of friends. I don't think any of whom have ever met in real life.
No.
Knowingly.
Mm-hmm.
I know that me and Terry have been at some Springsteen concerts the same over the years, but yeah, we've not met in person properly. So yeah, it is one of those fantastic things about this community that we're part of. That it's very precious.
Yes, and hopefully in 2022, crosses fingers that if vaccines work and we get through this, that Bruce wants to tour again, and hopefully that we will do some connections. Some people that were long distance, we will meet and break bread together and exchange hugs, and it will be wonderful.
Yeah, that would be great. And hopefully the East Street Band, all being over a certain age, they'll be pretty high up the list for getting their vaccines as well.
Yes, I think a couple of people said, okay, Bruce and the band can have my spot, right? Like we need them, so absolutely. So how is how is winter treating you guys? I know in the past we talked about you're doing okay, right?
Yeah, things are still ticking along. I've been doing a few different kinds of things. We're going to have a little chat about that shortly. But yeah, we're back in what's called a national lockdown here. It's not as strict as the first lockdown that we had in the spring last year. So the basic advice is that you're supposed to stay home unless you have one of a certain numbers of legitimate reasons. So if you're doing a kind of work that you can't do at home, then you can go out. You can go out to buy essential products. But otherwise, the shops are closed, the schools are closed right now. And so there's a lot of efforts, I guess, to get on top of this second wave of the virus, which hopefully will start to work. Although our case numbers, the health service here is under massive pressure, and so we just keep our fingers crossed that people are going to stick to it, because the government can introduce as many measures as it wants. Ultimately, it comes down to the people in the community to stick to it. And every time you read about police breaking up 200 people parties, and it just makes you so infuriated, the fact that you and everyone has been trying so hard. It can be really frustrating, but we see a light at the end of the tunnel, I think, with the vaccines.
We have had multiple agents on my team get COVID, and we've been able to track none of them have gotten it at the office. All of it is just people going through, we have strict protocols. They take our temperature every morning when we walk in. We answer the, 4 simple questions. We now think, I'm all nose. Have you been exposed to anyone with COVID? Have you had a fever in the last 24 hours? Do you have an unusual cough or, difficulty breathing? And, are you feeling okay? And, but, some of our coworkers have gone to New Year's Eve parties and just gone, just out and I'm not criticizing. Linda and I and Chris have gone out to dinner. We've been lucky enough. There's restaurants open, and we wear our masks going into, and the restaurants we go to are trying to do as much social distancing as possible. So I get that you can't spend forever down. I don't know if President Biden's going to do another, 30, 60 day lockdown. I know he's asked everyone for the next 100 days to wear a mask. There are going to be people that argue against that because, um, you know,
Yeah.
because our previous president made it a political statement instead of just a simple health thing. So I don't know. We'll see. So
Yeah.
you're joining me today to kind of in a little different way. Um, you know, we've always talked about when you've gone here, one of your gigs is being a tour guide. And with on lockdown, it's kind of hard to do tours. So
Yeah.
you've been creative. So talk to me first off. Tell me, how did you start becoming a tour guide?
Well, that's quite a long story in a way because it was something I always loved. I always loved travel, and
Okay.
when I was younger, I used to love doing guided tours of places because it just was a great way to find out a bit about something rather than just looking at a place and not really knowing what you're seeing. And so I first worked as a guide when I left university. I did 3 years working all around Europe, taking British, US, Australian, English-speaking tours around various parts of Europe. And then, that's not a lifestyle when you want to settle down, because I was literally living out of a suitcase for 6 months a year, staying in hotels, and it wasn't a long-term option. But it was the actual work I always loved, and I eventually got the chance years later to train to be a tour guide here in the UK. So to do day tours or maybe a few days, but to do that kind of thing. So I qualified as that for my region where I live, and so yeah, I've been doing it now for about a dozen years. And yeah, as you say, the lockdown has not been good for tourism,
Yeah.
and it's not been good for many industries. And so yeah, I mean, last year the whole season and the summer season in terms of our guiding just didn't happen. It was just a complete, none of the tours that I was planning to do, um, local and traveling around the country, they just didn't happen. So yeah, and I think then you start off and you think, okay, you kind of accept it gradually, but then you start to think, well, I do actually love doing this.
So that was my question I was going to ask, and I didn't want to put words in your mouth, and I'm glad you said that. In addition to the financial compensation, I this is something you love, so you just miss that. Like Jason Isbell in an interview was saying that financially he and Amanda, his wife, were doing okay, but he missed playing. He missed the sound of the crowd. He missed the joy and the energy he get from playing live. I know Bruce talks about that, right? So I think that's got to be you too, just as well as missing the economical part of it, that social part, that ability to share knowledge and see people learning and exciting and asking questions, right? You've got to miss that.
Oh yeah, I mean, I don't put it on the same level as a musician, but in a way, it is a performance. You're going out there, and people are hopefully getting something out of what you're doing. They're learning something, they're getting some entertainment, and you get that feedback from them. You can see on the faces and from what people tell you that you've done something that's really sort of benefited them, and you get to work a lot of the time with people who are on a vacation, they're traveling, so you're working with people at their best in a way because they're relaxed and you're just helping them to have a better time. So yeah, you miss it, particularly because the other work I do my translation work is so solitary. It's literally sitting at home in front of a screen typing.
Yeah,
And
because
so,
I can,
contact.
yeah, exactly. Because like I can tell you, we went, we had gone to Austin multiple times, and Linda got the idea, let's do a tour. And so we did a tour of Austin, and they were all, and it was this group that were all um, part-time either comedians or musicians, and so they were performers. And we
Yeah.
had a little van and we drove around Austin, and he told a lot about, the history of the city and things to do, and it was so much fun. So yeah, I recommend that. So, in the spirit of instead of cursing the darkness, lighting a candle, you and your company has decided to try to meet this in a virtual way, correct?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of guys started to do stuff online, and I kind of thought, well, because I do have the other work as well,
Right.
so I'm not totally relying on it financially. I thought, it's a poor imitation,
Hmm.
and I guess that's what we've seen with some musicians as well, and some music fans. Some
Yeah.
people have done the whole streaming from their bedroom to their fans, and some of the artists like that, some of the fans like it, and some don't. And I kind of, first of all, took the view it's kind of a poor imitation of what you'd normally do.
Sure.
But then I got to looking at a couple of them myself, and we were looking for things to do, so we signed up to do some virtual tours of various places, and it kind of lit the spark in me again,
Okay.
if you like.
Okay.
And I thought, you know what, that's what I should be doing. So I decided, yeah, how best can I do this? And I've come across kind of this two ways that I've come across to do it, and we just started doing them. We did I did the first tour a few days ago, and so we've been doing the first kind of tours are short live stream tours. Now, this was ideally what I wanted to do,
Okay.
but it's so hard to do independently because you need the technical setup to make sure to stream something live as you're walking around a city on a remote connection,
Yes.
and then you've got to make sure the camera and the video is okay and the sound and all this kind of thing. So I pretty much looked into that and wrote it off as a non-starter. But then I discovered a platform where people do that, and
Hmm.
they provide the infrastructure,
Oh, nice.
and they recruit guides in all kinds of cities around the world who are wanting to do this work, and so people from their platform can sign up for the tours and go do them. And so you do kind of an audition with them, and if they like what you do, you can get onto the platform and deliver the tours. So I've started doing them, and that's such great fun. It's very challenging, but it's very it's very enjoyable to get back out there doing it and
Yeah.
to be looking at things in a different way.
Yeah. And I want to hear some more details, but it was interesting. I'm a big Penn and Teller fan, the Magic Act, and I listen to Penn's podcast. And Matt Donnelly, who is one of his co-hosts, does a behind-the-scenes podcast on Fool Us, the show that started in the UK, is now back here in the US, where magicians come and try to fool Penn and Teller. Um, and they just did a season that was all with COVID protocols, and they said that some of them were, by video, but some of them did come to Vegas perform with no audience. And so they said it's very awkward because especially if you're more of a comedic act, you are you know your patter where this should normally get a laugh, this should get a reaction. So your timing is built so that you have that in there, and all of a sudden with no audience, it's like, nope. So you're smiling and shaking your head. So you want to expand on that a little bit to me?
Well, it's exactly the same thing. I've been doing a lot of these tours for a number of years in real life, and you know that there's a certain little line that people like, and it gets a little laugh. But you start trying to do that through a video stream, and you just kind of don't know. You don't know if everyone's sitting there stony faced or whatever. But one of the good things about the platform I'm working on is that they have a comments,
Okay.
a comment stream. So people can interact, they can ask questions, and it is a very different discipline because you're walking around filming, doing your commentary, but you're also looking at the screen, tracking the comments. So that is a little bit better because people can then kind of put a little laughing emoji or just put something up, or nice one, or whatever it is.
Very good.
And then you think, well, at least this has got some kind of
at least something.
To.
So talk to me a little bit. What tours are you offering, Ian?
Well, on that particular platform, I'm doing quite a few of around the region. So I'm doing a couple of different ones here in Birmingham, which is where I live, and I'm also doing some of the more what you call like the visitor destinations in the area. So Stratford upon Avon is our biggest visitor destination because of all the Shakespeare links and because it's such a beautiful little town, and some of the rural areas, the sort of quaint stone cottages in the Cotswolds, and I'm doing some stuff in Oxford as well. So I've got about 10 different tours up there on the platform at the moment. And I've got a load of more ideas because they're short, they're 30 to 40 minutes. So what you might normally do on a tour with a group would be 90 minutes to 2 hours. So straight away, that's kind of 3.
Yes. Yeah, exactly.
Kind of 3 of these other tours. And so, yeah, they're a lot of fun. And the tours that they have in other places, we've just been on one this afternoon. We've been for a little virtual tour around Dublin this afternoon.
Oh, that sounds fun.
So, yeah, it's a site called Virtual Trips.
Okay.
That's what it's called, and it's it's global. The tours are all free and it's tip supported.
Okay, well that's nice, and we're going to include that link in the show notes. Ian's going to email it to me, and I'll include that. But you and I were exchanging emails, and you were talking about you want to do something that is musical based because as much as you love music and everything, so you started thinking. So talk to me that process, and what did you come up with?
Yeah. Well, okay, yeah, because I've got the live stream tours, but the way that a lot of guides have been doing their tours in COVID times is on Zoom.
Okay.
So that is essentially a presentation. It's
right.
Still photos with a talk. So it is a virtual tour, but it is kind of an illustrated talk. And I've put a few of those on, and what I've tried to do with those, they're not about the locations so much as about themes. So I've tried to do topics because one of the great things I love doing is tours about things that I'm passionate about.
Right.
Whether that's literature, music, films, and so on. So, there's a few up there, but I thought, I really want to do a music-related thing. And ideally, I would have done a Beatles tour.
Yes.
And but I'm not allowed to really go all the way up to Liverpool at the moment to take all the necessary background footage for it. So, that's something to look at as and when things opens up a bit. So I thought, well, okay, let's do a music tour around our area.
Okay.
It's something I have done before because Birmingham and the surrounding area was essentially where a lot of early heavy metal music grew up.
Oh, okay. Did not aware of that.
It was known as one of the, and heavy metal, it took its name in some ways from the heavy metal working industries that were the main part of the economy here. So I have done these kinds of tours before with heavy metal fans who have been over in the UK for festivals, and they wanted to see the places, just like when you're a Bruce fan, you go to the Jersey Shore, you do the Jersey Shore tour over there. People wanted to do that with some of the bands in this region, and I thought, okay, let's turn that into a Zoom tour, and let's bring in as many sort of music-related links from the area as we can, and let's put that out there for people to kind of find out a little bit about. So, we're talking about bands like Black Sabbath, one of our most famous bands here, obviously one of the biggest metal acts of all time. We're talking about Judas Priest, another massive metal act.
Have you or a loved one been robbed by pre-made breakfast?
In terms of particular fashions for the leathers and the biker looks. And biggest of all, certainly three members of Led Zeppelin are from this area. And so there's all of those links coming in there, and a lot of other musicians too. So the tour is a combination. We look at the places where these guys grew up, and places where they met one another, and places where they played some of their early gigs. And then we look a little bit more generally at the music scene in the area. So some of the iconic clubs and venues from over the years, and think about some of the famous bands that have played there. A lot of them are now, like everywhere, the same. They're not clubs anymore. They're all kinds of things. Yeah. So, that's quite fascinating. And so it's a mixture of all those things. And what I really just wanted to do was, think, well, okay, this is the area I'm in. This is where I live. Let's put out a little bit of something to do with the music of this area until we can start going and discovering more. And I thought, hopefully people, if they're really into those bands, obviously it's an important thing for them. But even if not, hopefully there's a little bit of general interest in the way that the music scene developed and the way that different styles of music, genres have developed in a particular area that has a broader appeal as well. So, that's what it's all about, really.
Well, that sounds amazing and kind of fun. I was lucky enough when back in 2016 when I went up to New York and saw Bruce at MetLife Stadium. The day after the tour, I went on Stan Goldstein's tour of the Holy Land, Springsteen. It was an all-day tour. It was amazing, and so I could see whether you're a casual music fan or a passionate fan, seeing this and hearing this, seeing images, talking about the background would be a lot of fun. So well done, sir.
Yeah, and it's hopefully going to be fun. I mean, there's a lot of very famous names there that are going to come in, and people will be like, okay, and there's a few surprises that I'm not going to give away of people that, I didn't know he was from that area, and and the very famous musicians and so on. So that's what we're looking at, and what I wanted to do, obviously, is maybe find one or two Bruce links, but the problem is they don't really fit into the main tour.
Right, yes.
So,
I know we talked about, right? Go ahead.
So, I don't know if you want to mention, let's
talk about you're running a special for your set listing Bruce listeners.
Yes, so what Jesse and myself have been talking about is what can we do to maybe give a little bit extra for Set Listing Bruce listeners if they feel like they might want to support this music tour in the West Midlands. And so what I came up with, we do have here in Birmingham a indirect link to the heritage of Bruce Springsteen. And I thought what I'd do is make a little special video clip at the particular location and talk a little bit more about that, and maybe just talk a little bit more about the venues and the times that Bruce has actually been in our city here, so that that's a little bit extra, and that'll be available to Set Listing Bruce listeners with a voucher code, and so then that'll be as a private link on my YouTube channel, and then you guys can get that link from us, and hopefully enjoy a little bit of niche Bruce content.
Yes.
Most people who do this tour probably wouldn't know what the heck I was talking about.
No, that's perfect, because you get the standard tour. You're going to get a little bonus, featurette kind of. And I'm throwing it out there. If you take a screenshot, do a PDF of you buying the tour, and you email it to setlistlingbruce@gmail.com, I will send you a hard Set Listing Bruce sticker to say thank you.
Yeah.
So just kind of my little way to help support, also to get some engagement. So I don't have a mailing list, so you won't be getting a lot of email. You won't be getting, mail from me, but you will if you email me the little voucher. Give me your mailing address, and I will email you. I will send you out a Set Listing Bruce sticker as a way of saying thank you for listening to the show and supporting Ian.
Yeah, and when I can give you the link right at the end of our chat, Jesse, and put it in the show notes as well. If you do go on there and book the tour, please use the voucher code Bruce1 when you book your tickets, and then our ticket agent can make sure that I get a list of everybody who's used that voucher code, and we can make sure that you all get the extra little content that I'm doing for you as well. So use the code Bruce1.
So how much is the cost for the tour?
The cost is £8, which includes the booking fee. That's what's that these days? $11 maybe?
Yeah.
$10,
Yeah.
$11, something.
So that's not much
and it'll
at
be
all.
about a 90-minute tour, something like that. It's going to be in the evening UK time. So what I'm going to do, because I know that's pretty inconvenient for people over in the States, if you are unable to make the date, the live event, it will be available as a recording for 48 hours afterwards.
Yeah, Arlen Schumer.
Everybody who books will get an email about that afterwards.
Yeah.
And just as soon as I can get the recording uploaded and we get the email sent out, then you can. So that means, if you're working, if it's just not a convenient time of day, don't worry, because you can go and watch the recording of it later that evening or whenever it's convenient.
That's
for you.
awesome. Yeah, a friend of the show, Arlen Schumer, has done several of these with either, he's done James Bond, he's done Springsteen themes, and so the same thing, right? Like he does it live, but then for X amount of time afterwards, it's available by video, so that we can see it. So that's great. Well, go ahead.
If we have anybody out there in the Set Listing Bruce community who's got interest in some of the other tours that we're doing as well, obviously feel free. I don't have any Bruce-related content for those, but if you're interested, for example, in Tolkien, I have 2 tours locations associated with Tolkien's life and work. And if you've ever seen the TV show Peaky Blinders, which is set in Birmingham, a very sort of popular show over recent years, we've got a tour about the real stories behind that one too. So they're the other kinds of things we're doing. It's about books, it's about TV, and in this case about music as well.
Oh, that's awesome. That's great. And I stand by that. Anyone who books a tour, even the tip one, if you send me the voucher, I want to support this, and look, I've got 100 Set Listing Bruce stickers, and I bought them because I was going to go to shows and give to people, and we know how that worked out. So, hey, let's get these out there. Any final thoughts, Ian?
Well, firstly, just to say a huge thank you to you, Jesse, for inviting me back on the show. It's always great to catch up, and it's like I keep saying, this community is a very precious thing, always, but especially in these COVID times. And thank you to you for offering to have a little chat about this, the tours I'm doing, to give that support. It is so much appreciated, because with a one-man company, you're very limited in terms of advertising budget, and So it's great if we can get the word out there. And I really, really hope that some of you guys from the community come on some of the tours and that you enjoy it, and that it gives you something else to do other than being in your own four walls as we sit out and wait for things to get better.
Absolutely. Well said. Well said. Yes, I am glad to do it. I did want to throw it out there. Any Set Listing Bruce listeners, if you have a business that you want to promote, I do this free. I don't charge it. I don't taste like, Tony Soprano. Where's my taste? This is just, I want to my part of helping the Set Listing Bruce community. So reach out to me. Ian, as always, I love talking to you. Did you get to see Bruce do Land of Hope and Dreams on the inaugural?
Oh, yes. Yeah. I swear Abraham Lincoln was tapping his foot at one stage.
I think so. I loved the whole special. I thought the whole theme, Bon Jovi doing "Here Comes the Sun" was pretty amazing. And all of them just, the Foo Fighters I thought was really good. That's one of my favorite songs. Because I would have thought, well, nothing is going to match Bruce, but those two songs specifically, I enjoyed just as much as I did Bruce. The whole special was amazing.
I think it was a great choice of artists, a great mix of artists, and great choices of material as well. It just fitted the mood and the circumstances perfectly.
I did have this slight little when Tom Hanks said that the two country artists, I'm drawing a blank their names, were going to do Better Days. I went, what? And then I went, oh. I was like, what? Am I going to get Land of Hope and Dreams and Better Days? Holy cow. And it's like, oh, okay. Calm down, Jesse. So, Ian, I'm going to include the show notes, but also if someone wants to reach you directly via Twitter, how can they?
Okay, my personal Twitter is Ian Braisby, which is IANBRAISBY, Ian Braisby. And my business Twitter is IAB Tours.
Okay, good.
Very simple.
Well, great. Well, Ian, best of luck to you. Continued success. Please stay safe. And, I guess your garden's kind of pulled back right now, right, with being winter?
It's got snow on it today. Yeah, but we've had snow today. It has probably about 4 inches of snow.
Oh, send me a photo. I'd love to see that. I bet it's beautiful.
I will do that. Yeah,
all right, good deal. All right, listeners, you stay safe, stay warm. If where you are, it is. I know a lot of snow hit here in the U.S. Here in Texas, it's just wet and rainy. So be safe. Remember to social distance. Wash your hands. Wear an effing mask. Let's all be good to each other because that's the only way we're going to get through this. For now, thank you, and we'll talk to you soon. Doing a podcast at times can be a one-way conversation, and I hate that. So please let me know what you like and don't like about the work I'm doing. You can reach the podcast via email at setlistingbruce@gmail.com. The show is on Twitter at setlistingbruce, and my personal Twitter is at jessejacksondfw. We have a website, www.setlistingbruce.com. From there, you can find links to other Springsteen podcasts as well as other music-themed podcasts. We have a page devoted to our own SLB All-Star Band. These are guests who have been on the podcast more than 3 times. There is a link to our store where you can purchase Set Listing Bruce shirts as well as a Merry Question t-shirt. There is a link to our Patreon page where you can sign up to help support the podcast financially. We have different levels and different rewards based on your support. If you don't have any extra cash, and right now who does, you can support the podcast by subscribing via your favorite podcast player and leaving us a review. The more reviews we have, the easier it is for people to find us. And please tell a friend about the podcast, especially if they love Bruce or music, because it will make a difference. You just heard the fun talking, hard rocking, music loving, album ranking, fan thinking, joy spreading, lyric reading, story sharing podcast that is the one, the only Set Listing Bruce. Set Listing Bruce is part of the Southgate Media podcast group. The theme for Set Listing Bruce was written by David Rosen, used by permission.